This is Gurgaon. It was supposed to be India's Tokyo, but what it has become is India's Venice. No engineer in the world was able to achieve this feat, but the engineers appointed by the Gurugram administration have done the impossible. They have made it possible for all kinds of transport to ply under the bridge. The latest feat is to have submarine in the underpass. I guess they had seen a possible Chinese vessel attack upcoming, so they made the underpass capable of attacking the ship. This is the kind of nationalism India seeks today from its super honest engineers and administrators. India is making efforts such as these across the country. Earlier it was the drill to bang plates, and now this latest drill to submerge as many cities as possible to test its abilities to live underwater. This exercise is being carried out in case there is an air raid. They will submerge the nation and no aircraft can see the target. This is the kind of security systems that are going into place. The highways have been submerged as well. This is being done for strategic reasons. In case invaders reach one city, they'll be able to cross over to the other. The latest case in point is the Delhi-Jaipur highway. The downside is that MLAs will not be able to cross over between political parties either. But the greed of owning a state government is not as important as submerging the nation, now would it? Assam was drowned last month to protect India from China. Bihar is being drowned to protect India from Nepal. All that's left is Gujarat and Punjab for the drill. Kashmir testing has already been carried out a few years ago. New Delhi Bureau, Democracy News Live.
What India is going through today is not funny at all. We have expressed ourselves many times over, but the city administrations have made a joke out of India. Poor infrastructure planning has landed us here. Whether we look at Mumbai, India's financial capital, or New Delhi, or Gurugram, Bengal, Assam, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, they all have similar challenges. It is really surprising that these city management officials don't realize that in a few years, this same water which is flooding the cities will actually not even be available for drinking for people. India's rivers are getting dry. Good evening and welcome to our daily broadcast. It matters on Democracy News Live. The story for the day is of great concern for India, but only spoken of when floods happen each year and then it's done. Article 21 of the Constitution provides the right to food, water and decent environment. When water floods the way we've seen in the last few months, it leads to contamination of water sources as sewage mixes with water, causing severe waterborne diseases. In the near future, the water crisis is going to hit the country really hard. Cities are going to die of water scarcity. Cities like Delhi and Chennai are extracting water from rivers that are almost 250 to 450 kilometers away. In the states of Northeast India, near the Himalayas and the Kosi River, approximately 76% of the state's population is under recurring threat of flood devastation. There is an urgent need for an integrated water management framework of India. We decided we'll start this funny, but I'm sorry, it's not a joke. What we see is a disaster in the making. We have a very esteemed panel with us today. Joining me is Manvita Barari, she's the director for Urban Management Center. Anil Sharma, who's an architect, does massive projects around the world. But first, I'm going to start the show with our correspondent, Jessica Taneja. Jessica, tell me, what did you see on the ground? What have you seen here in Gurugram and in Delhi?
Well, it's a complete disaster, so to say. Not just the commuters, but look, even the schools have been shut. Section 144 has been imposed. People cannot step out. And in fact, with the last 3 days, there have been massive traffic jams, 6 to 8 hours where people have been stuck on the roads with water nearly reaching above their knees. And it's been absolutely difficult with small vehicles crossing through. Most of the roads have caved in, Rohit. It's difficult for even the management to do something at this point in time. There's been backflow of water. There have been conservation issues. It wasn't suddenly expected, but the administration has clearly not done enough to ensure that people are able to move around. And with such massive rains, even predicted, the Indian Meteorological Department has said that there'll be continuous rain and thunderstorm for the next 3 days. So God knows how the city is going to survive and how the movement will be enabled.
Yeah, one of the signs I saw this beautiful bridge in Gurgaon where there's an underpass, and it's done in this massively beautiful way. But come rain, and that whole underpass was full of water. Unbelievable. But this is not the first underpass in this country. Literally, even going to Chanakyapuri, which is the diplomatic enclave, going just close to the Prime Minister's house. There is an underpass which always has water, and every rain it's never ever stopped. Look at this right now. Unbelievable. This whole underpass, this is about 10 feet deep, 12, 15 feet, 20 feet deep. It's all full of water. Unbelievable that they couldn't manage it like that. Well, explain to me, what are people's reactions on the ground? What are you hearing from people?
Well, they've been unable to go out. There have been, electricity supplies cut short. Schools are shut. In fact, and there has been no clear direction from the administration as well. All we know, that all the reports that we, have right now is that the rains are going to continue and situation keep getting worse in the city. So the residents are really only hopeful, that the situation subsides and the water logging reduces. But there are no signs so far of it reducing because there are going to be more rains in the next coming days. So people are literally just stuck inside their houses, waiting for a response, and God forbid if it gets worse in the next 3 days.
There are two parts of this. Firstly, the management systems are completely broken down. Planning doesn't go in on how the water is going to come and how the water is going to go. The second big thing, KP Singh, the management head of DLF, who retired just a few months ago, he said, we have paid thousands of crores of rupees for the development of the city, for the development of the apartments that have come up and the houses that have come up. But the government of India, or Haryana government in this case, for example, has just kept this money in their bank accounts. And they should have invested this money, created a proper system, instead of putting it in the bank account and sitting on it. This is absolutely wrong. You've taken this money from the residents who bought these houses. You told them that you will do this development. You don't put it in your pockets and sit in your homes with it. You should be sent to jail for being an official like this, or you should be going to jail for being a politician like this. I'm going to go now to our two experts. Thank you, Jessica, who are going to be talking about what we are doing and how we are going to go about this, or where we are going wrong. First of all, Manvita Barari, she's the Director, Urban Management Center. Ma'am, I know you talk about city matters. Explain to us, when you see what we are going through, what comes to your mind?
Rohit, it's awful. It's Delhi today, Gurgaon yesterday, Assam day before. I mean, it's just on and on. All our cities are going through this. Urban flooding is a phenomenon. It's not that we have heavy rains and we can't manage it, but the problem lies in the way our cities are structured. The problem is in planning and management of cities. Why do we not have appropriate planning strategy to get the water? On one hand, we don't have water. On the other hand, the excess water which is coming, should be a boon. We should be happy that we're getting so much rain. Why are we not collecting in our ponds and rivers? The problem is the topography of the city is not known. We fill in land, we build over and over again. So the cities just grow, there's infill. So the lower areas has to be like craters. They should hold water so that the water can seep in. That is not being planned. So where is our integrated management approach? Where are our planning policies which allow us to look at water bodies, which allow low-lying areas, will allow us to build in the areas where they ought to build? So I think as a country, we have great architects, we have good planners, we have engineers, but we lack management skills. And hence, urban management is at the core of all our work. which needs to happen. Relook at city administration and management in a big, big way. Rohit,
Completely,
that's
I'm with you, Manvita. You hit the nail on the head. It is the core of the issue. Is all city spending happens based on a politician's relative, or who gets all the contracts. They will carry out the little sewage creation. No proper planning. They'll hire the cheapest architect they can find to be able to say, all right, topography, research is not required. We don't know where the ground is high or low. This is the cheapest way to do it. Get it done. It gets made. It's all the bills are passed. There is a lot of the pilferage of money around it, and this continues to go on. Let me bring in Anil here, and then I'll come back to you. Anil, when you see this, you plan and you execute hotels around the world, and you execute sites around the world. Is this what happens in other cities of the world as well?
It never happens anywhere except in the subcontinent, in our part of the world, be it Bangladesh, be it sometimes even Kathmandu, the hill cities, or wherever. We, this region as such, as a whole, we have been guided all the way through, always by the engineers. Engineers have a very limited view of urban planning and an integrated approach. Now, the problem that we have been facing is that today, because of that mindset, all our cities have become completely and absolutely sick. We talk about smart cities. There's so much of money which was being spent on smart cities. What we were talking about, they were being driven, all the development was being driven by industry, by IT. Sometimes the cities were developed earlier by the automobile industry, now the IT industry. But nobody is talking about how we can make our cities livable. Today,
Right.
very simple example, there's no space on the road for anybody to walk. I cannot walk from my house to the metro station, which is only about 200 meters away. There's no way I can come out of my house and walk there. But there are no walkways. There's no surface areas where the water can actually percolate and go down the ground. And everybody, wherever the rainwater drains are, they've been completely chock-a-block by filled up parking spaces, uncalled for parking spaces. These spaces have not been defined. All metal surfaces. So what do you end up? You will end up with flooding like this. The drains are not sufficient. And it all can be achieved very easily.
Right.
There has
No,
to be
no,
a will.
absolutely. Absolutely,
I
Anil.
mean,
You again, you're making a very strong point.
talking about
Integrated
this,
approach, integrated approach on
uh,
the cities. For example, every next to every house in the city, there's a
yeah,
there is a footpath, but it is today become a parking lot.
yeah,
Every neighborhood has got gates. These were supposed to be access roads. The
correct.
city continues to crumble. The administration looks on, they are powerless because they're too busy trying to make money with all the corruption that they do. And the
Absolutely.
cities just continue to expand and go nuts, absolutely. Uh,
Absolutely.
Manvita, coming back to you, explain to me, where will we have to begin? I think we all know the problem. I think everybody knows the problem, including the administration and the politicians know the problem. We will have to begin somewhere. We can't just let it crumble, going down the years after years after years. We can't just let these cities fall because they will fall. Let's be honest. If they continue going like this, where do we start?
I feel there is still hope. It's still not going to crumble as you suggest, but there is rethinking unless we converge. So my few points which I would like to make is convergence is a place you begin with. How do you converge? The urban development will have to speak with the economic development. The cities have to be aspiring to do local economic development. We are talking about the state governments normally do the local economic development. The biggest hit which cities because of such flooding is the economic hit, right? The industries suffer. The economic growth of the city is always hurt. So if, as you mentioned, DLF said that they have paid monies. Now monies are lying in their kitty unless they and city administration sit together to make a plan. It's not going to work. Sometimes planners do their job, but it is not executed. The fundamental lies in training, capacity building. Fundamental rise in our integrated approach. And third, involving the community. Community knows that where the problems are, where the low-lying areas are. And second, data-driven approach. We have to have information. Like today it's flooded. We should be right now measuring the flood levels in all of us areas in the city to know what is the depth. Why water always finds its level. So if we know where the depth are, so we have to measure it. We should be actually on the field measuring it. And we have technology. Instead of using Wi-Fi cities, you better use technology, get drones out, measure, have a infrared system, sonic systems to know where the flooding is happening and what is the cause. We should be able to mark this on a map, and mapping exercise has to be immediately taken up to have a base map to on which we can all work as a team.
Was built upon. Anil, where would your first recommendation be to the government of India today and the state governments today? What do they need to start doing
My,
first?
my take on this is that we need to go back to the basics. We have to find out the reason why it all started. It all started primarily because the planners, the urban planners, the city planners never did their work right. To detail the edge of the road. All that, they just metal and the edges, all the edges were completely left out for anybody to go and occupy and this thing, take over that space of land. So we have to go back to the basics where everything went wrong. We never created, and now the problem has become so much wide, so much big that it cannot be handled at a larger level. We have to now go to a smaller level. We have to go to every pocket, every society, say a particular block of east of Kailash. We have to go and handle it there, that level. All water problem, including water recycling, including rainwater discharge, including sewage, everything will have to be handled at micro level, not at a mega level of a city. We will not be able to achieve that. So an integrated approach of smaller pockets, handling it to the health, this requires a political will, it requires involvement of everybody, every stakeholder in it. It's not that difficult to achieve. It can all be achieved, but unless there is a vision for it and there is proper professionals are involved. Now, professionals cannot be involved because government uses this bidding process and they only hire some kind of consultant who quote the least. So they will never get the right kind of brain to do and advise them to do the right thing. So they need to, the solutions are available. It has to be achieved only at a micro level now. There's no other way we can handle it in a larger way.
Sure. Manita, closing statements from you on what needs to happen first now. And I know you've already talked about it, but if you were to tell the Prime Minister and the Urban Affairs Minister what they need to do tomorrow, first thing, what would you tell them?
First thing is relief, definitely. People who have suffered have to be provided relief. But apart from that, let's start measuring, collecting data, and sitting on it for next year's flooding does not happen in the cities. I mean, we have seen massive, the low-lying areas have to be understood. There cannot be building unless there is a stormwater drainage planned. We cannot have stormwater and the sewer network as one network. That's another problem where engineers have to cost cut. They do is they lay two, instead of laying two different lines, they have one line. The stormwater cannot collect our sewerage because
Correct.
stormwater would end up in local the rivers and water bodies, while sewerage has to go to STPs. But unfortunately, only 64% of our country has sewerage network. Rest
Right.
of the water is just lying, going in the nalas. So that's
Wow, that is
first thing
absolutely a big one, and it is one of the issues we have. 40% of the country does not have a sewage network. which means when the sewage goes out, it lands up in these river bodies, and the riverbeds then become this massive, pollutants to the groundwater. It then brings back diseases to society. And this is one of the big issues that we face. People aren't willing to look at it. I was traveling just last week, and I reached out to the district magistrate of the area where I was traveling, and I messaged him about the issue. The whole town's sewage comes to the riverbed. Also, all the garbage is sitting on that riverbed, and the contamination is ongoing. He was kind enough to send me a thank you note, but really, it needs to be sorted out. So, if this country is looking at it, if the leadership is looking at the show, you really need to take action today. It does not matter what has happened in the past. Let's get beyond. Let's make sure that we establish systems. We hire the right group of people to manage the water systems, and plan urban cities properly with proper management in place. Thank you, Anil. Thank you, Manvita. Thank you for joining us for the show at a very short notice. I think it's important. And thank you, Jessica, for getting us the images and being out there in the field. Good night and good luck.
Bye-bye.